what would you advise documented U.S. citizens of Latino heritage, 7 of our colleagues, what do you think they should do to prepare if they ever have an encounter with law enforcement? Specifically, do you believe Hispanics in the state of Texas, U.S. citizens, should they be carrying documentation with them when they leave their house?
Absolutely not. I would assume under that scenario you just painted that they would have a license, they would have insurance, they would have registration, anything that you or I would be asked to.
Well, you and I will never be questioned for our papers. Would you not concur with that?
I don't think that's an accurate statement, but...
No, it's that you don't believe that you and I will be free from ever being questioned whether we're blonde, blue-eyed American citizens?
Looking at
this will never affect
so the answer to your question is license, registration, insurance, other documentation, other verifiable, digitally verifiable in a database system that every law enforcement has available.
And so you can't go down the street or work in your yard or go to your neighbors just maybe at a swim party without some documentation such as the ones you described.
If an officer stops...
If by chance there's a disturbance, law enforcement shows up and you're a Hispanic, don't you think under the terms of your bill, would you advise them to always have some type of citizenship proof?
No, sir.
And I'm talking about my colleagues, 7 of them here on the floor.
I can just...
And this is a serious question.
No, I
think everyone needs to anticipate
I think
circumstances, and it's not a hypothetical, it's a real life possibility. You never know when you're going to encounter law enforcement. You never know when you're going to have to defend yourself, or you make a mistake and law enforcement's called. And if you're in your neighborhood, you're Chuy Hinojosa, he's going to have to prove that he's a U.S. citizen. Is that not what your bill would do?
The officer in that situation at the time is going to exercise discretion. If he believes he needs to know who everybody that's there, not only including the Hispanics, but anybody and everybody in that circle, he has every right to ask them for their license or their proof of where they're from. But the bottom line is, you're inquiring me, you're asking me, should I walk around with papers and I've done nothing wrong and an officer stops me for doing nothing wrong? That's not legal today.
It's not just pulling you over. It could be in the neighborhood. You might actually be defending yourself.
Well, then the bill allows for you to, as a victim of crime, to not even be asked.
No one trusts and is closer to law enforcement on this Senate floor than me. I also know not all officers practice best practices. They, under the terms of your bill, could they not ask one of our Hispanic colleagues who might not have documentation with them to prove that they're a citizen, and in fact could arrest them if they cannot furnish such documentation?
I think
that is so alarming.
No.
Would you not agree?
No, I think the operative word in your question is could. There's nothing in SB 4 that requires that officer to inquire under any circumstance.
But you've got to prepare for the coulds, the possibilities.
We never prepare for all the coulds.
Well,
it's just not. But I would tell you this, I mean, Senator Uresti can pass for brothers. He may not admit it, but I've had people speak Spanish to me because I used to be dark pregnant hair.
No,
so
I don't think you have. You don't have to worry. Would you not agree that you're never going to have to worry about being asked?
I don't know.
To
but
prove?
I think what you're missing there is this is a could. Your statement's a could. This is a may.
That's our job to do. That's our job to anticipate those circumstances.
Right.
And in fact, do you believe you and I are best to describe the concerns of the Hispanic community versus our House colleagues? Those were real tears, real anxiety and fear. The children of undocumented that appeared before State Affairs, those were real tears. Do you understand that? I mean, it's not what you and I think, because one, we're never going to have this apply to us. – Who's the best resource to describe the fear and anxiety of your legislation? You and me, or our Hispanic colleagues in the House, or our Hispanic colleagues on this Senate floor? Surely you recognize they come from a different perspective than you and I will ever come from.
Absolutely.
Are you aware, because of this legislation, hundreds of thousands of Texans are preparing for the passage of this, preparing in terms of what are we going to do if our undocumented father is asked for documentation? Do you know, Senator Perry, in my district in Houston, I know families that are preparing for the worst under your legislation. They've had family meetings. If the father or mother's picked up, the children are to pull the money out of the bank, prepare for going forward without a major family member. And these are U.S. citizens making these plans. Are you aware? That's not a hypothetical. That's what's happening as you and I are talking. I have a lady that does physical therapy on youngsters in the Heights. She told me the other day she was treating a young client, and in the same house she could hear the father giving instructions. If your bill passes, if you concur today successfully, what preparation and plans they should be making for that family splitting up. Are you aware that that's actually taking place?
You tell me it is. I don't distrust you.
What is so alarming is, to me, partly how routine, and you're a good man, there's 31 fine members here today, but have we just resolved that this is going to become the law? Where's the anxiety? Where's the worry about unintended consequences on this floor? I mean, do you not worry about any unintended consequences of this becoming the law?
So, number one, you don't see me in my private time. I do have that angst, and I do hear and see that. I do feel Senator Mendez's pain in that sense. Can I relate? No, I haven't walked a mile in his shoes. But at the same time, can you appreciate the angst to see our civil system and our criminal system undermined by people that say, we don't do it that way anymore? And we wake up in a society that doesn't look like anything we resemble, because 254 jurisdictions and multiple cities underneath have decided we're going to apply the law this way today. And I can go from county to county and we start having different effects. And that's just as devastating and angst to me. But I do not take anything that's been expressed to me on this floor regarding those situations. I sat through the testimony and I heard every one of those concerns expressed. But I'm elected.
You what?
I'm elected to try and maintain civil order and civil society and keep a law that we all rely to be fairly administered across the board. It is unfortunate we're having an SB 4 legislation. And we wouldn't be if I had all the confidence in the world that our jurisdictions around this state weren't going to be given the latitude to pick and choose what they get to do with respect to not just this law. Take the immigration issue aside. It's any of those laws. We have to have a certainty that every jurisdiction understands their role. But to say that I'm cavalier effectively, it's just absolutely not true. You know me pretty well on some level. You don't know me at all levels. And
I don't know you what?
You don't know me at all the levels. I have friends and Hispanics that talk to me regularly. Some of them are like, it's a great law. Some of them say, I got concerns. And I don't know how to reconcile those two other than to go forward with what I know is best, and that's have a system that's uniformly, without prejudice, without subjector by independent jurisdictions across the state picking and choosing what they do.
And you also know from Lubbock, you would not be able to run your feedlots.
That's a different debate.
The agriculture
That's a
community
different debate.
around West
That
Texas,
is a different argument.
I understand.
And if those
that's
people
not-
are using the work permit process, which a large part of my, I got a janitor that told me, he said, I can set you to the day and to the time when Joe so-and-so is going to show up from Mexico with his family. He's been doing it for 30 years, and he works on a permit, and then he leaves.
And I understand your
It's a
intended
different
purpose
debate.
is to get after the criminal element in the undocumented community. But you also, know that we have outstanding police chiefs. Art Alceveda, who happens to be Hispanic, says that this will damage law enforcement's effort to keep our
My
community
police
safe.
chief says it's not going to change their world because they're doing the job that they're supposed to do. It only affects those that choose to interpret and decide what laws and how they administrate them.
But see, I listen to law enforcement.
I do too.
We all honored them the last couple of days.
Yeah, I do.
Then we should listen to them as well. The same people that we were honoring on the steps of the Capitol.